Hello, how are you? Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of Soundtracking Extra, our little YouTube show that is a companion, a sister piece to my podcast, Soundtracking. Now, for those of you who are subscribed to the podcast and regular listeners, you'll have heard the wonderful Tom Hiddleston on the podcast maybe about a couple of months ago now, followed by Kate Herron and Natalie Holt, the wonderful director and composer from Loki. And last week I stuck up the unedited chat that I had with Kate and Natalie, and a lot of you were desperately asking, when are you going to put up the chat with Tom so we can watch it? So I'm going to do that for you now. So I hope you enjoy my exactly 30 minutes, I think it is, chat with Tom Hiddleston about Loki and lots of different things actually around music and his career. It's a real joy to get to chat to Tom about this. I hope it's the first of many episodes that we get to do. And I know that a lot of you have enjoyed Loki. I don't think there's many spoilers in this chat, not so many as there was with Natalie and Kate. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, here you go. I should just say as well that there's a weird, I just kept everything in because I've got nothing to hide really. But when I started the interview, because it's through the kind of whole publicity realms of Marvel and whatnot, you have someone who goes, please, can you introduce yourself and your outlet? So this is me. My name is Edith Eleanor Bowman, and this is for my podcast Soundtracking. Hey!
Hey!
Oh, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well too. Thank you for asking. Yeah, really, really good. Nice to see you virtually.
Yes, likewise. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
What a pleasure. It's amazing. I remember when you launched this podcast.
About 45
years ago. Something like that. And look at you go. Look at you now.
Oh, yeah. We've missed 2 weeks since we launched back in August 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Which we're very proud of. Yeah, but it's so great to have you on because I know that music is such a, well, as well as being a fan of music, music is from conversations that we've had is an important tool and companion, I guess, for you.
100%. Yes. It's sort of the first, I don't know what I'd do without it. I don't know what any of us would do without it. It's sometimes such a source of inspiration to me. And I'm kind of in awe of it, really, as an art form. Without straying too far into pretentiousness, I'm reminded of this quote by, I think, an essayist called Walter Pater, who said, all art aspires to the condition of music, which sort of is to say that basically music is that music is the peak, and everybody else, I'm sure acting is really far down the pyramid, but we're all trying to get to the immediacy, the emotional immediacy that music can evoke,
Yeah, absolutely. It's I remember interviewing this amazing young scientist called Zoe Cormier, who wrote this book called Sex, Drugs and Rock and Roll. And she's this kind of jungle scientist, or guerrilla scientist as she calls herself. And she, through her research as well, and she talks a lot about it in the book, is music is the only thing that that kind of connects both sides of the brain. So it is the only thing kind of in scientific terms. And if you did a cross section, like you say, of this kind of different creative minds of their brain, you would very clearly see in someone who worked with and around music that their left and right side of their brains were actually connected. It's amazing, isn't it?
Amazing. Truly.
Yeah. Right. I want to get into music in a second, but I want to talk. Well, I mean, it's part of the discussion. I've watched the first 2 episodes of Loki, and I watched it with the kids, and we had such a great time.
Good.
Great. It's so clever without kind of trying to be too clever. It's so colorful. It's different. It's just so many brilliant things.
Oh, thank you so much. We had an amazing team on this, surrounded by literally amazing people who work night and day for 18 months, some possibly longer, just trying to crack it, and
Yeah.
take this character who we all know has had a long history and try and find a new way of opening him up,
Yeah.
excavating all these many different contradictory characteristics that he seems to contain. But it's a really fascinating new world that he's in. And I hope everyone finds it. It just gets more and more surprising. So,
When did you know there was going to be a TV spin-off?
it was quite the month, I think. It was around April, May of 2018. And that was the same time that Avengers Infinity War had been released.
Oof.
And as everybody can remember, the opening scene,
Emotional times.
Yes. In the the beginning of that film, Loki meets his end. And so I really thought my journey was over and was getting ready to do other things. And then I got the call from Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito saying, right, we're going to do 6 hours of Loki for Disney Plus. And I thought,
wow,
great. How? So that's how long I've known about it. And then that summer was a really enjoyable summer of putting our heads together and thinking where to take him next and what to do with him. So yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, like you say, he's kind of got this amazing, he's been this character that, he's obviously part of this world, but with all the other, with your Thors and Iron Mans and stuff, we kind of know them and we know what they're capable of. I mean, Taika definitely kind of switched it up with Ragnarok amazingly. Yes. With Thor, but I think that with Loki, he's just this character, obviously the mischief thing, but you never know what he's going to do next, and that must be such a thrilling thing as an actor, in terms of you kind of have a blank canvas every time you get the chance to play him.
Yeah, it's in his DNA: unpredictability, mischief, spontaneity, chaos, and has been as long as the character's been in human consciousness. He's been the trickster in Norse mythology, in any mythology, is this transgressive, disruptive, boundary crossing sort of being who kind of you can't trust, but maybe sometimes you need. And in those amazing old stories, occasionally at the 11th hour, when everyone else has run out of ideas, it's Loki who throws his hat in and is useful. So it's cool.
He'd always be, I imagine him in sort of normal life, to be the person at the end of a night out who'd always have a great suggestion of somewhere else you could go to kind of continue the party.
Yeah, the party never stops with Loki, I think.
I love that. I want to know, what do you think? What does he listen to? What kind of music does Loki listen to?
That's a good question. Eclectic. I think it's an eclectic range of hugely eclectic taste. I think he definitely enjoys a rousing classical arrangement, probably in celebration of himself or something. But I don't know. It's weird. I've listened to so many pieces of music in preparation to play him.
Oh wow!
Which is kind of like. And they really vary too. There's some of them are old soundtracks, and some of them are things like listening to the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Give us some specifics of things that you've listened to, if you don't mind.
Sympathy for the Devil has mischief in its rhythm, I think. I hope the Rolling Stones aren't offended by that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, totally.
And what else? Then there's kind of there's so much pathos in the character as well, which is so you've got this exterior playfulness, but also kind of an interior vulnerability. And I've always kind of found that really interesting, going back to sort of listen to quite classical pieces of music. For this, well, on this show, I used to play music on set all the time. And because it was sort of such a fun way of including everybody, it kind of with what was going on in my head, and what the pace of the scene was, or what the atmosphere of the scene was, and bless the crew for being so patient with me, carrying around my little portable speaker.
Amazing.
Yeah, sometimes I would play. Do you know there's a track from Dunkirk called Supermarine, on Hans Zimmer's soundtrack, which has an extraordinary and quite stressful propulsive momentum, which I think embodies the Christopher Nolan theme of time running out, this ticking clock, and the tick of the clock itself seems to be beating in double time. And it's the whole track just has this kind of really circular, stressful momentum, which raises the stakes. And because this is a series about the clock ticking, time running out, time matters, time travel, timelines, jumping around time, it seems such an appropriate thing to play. But then also in that film, there is I'm obsessed with that soundtrack, as you know, but there are so many extraordinary, beautiful, elegant stretches of where Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch have almost elongated sections of Elgar's Enigma variations, which evokes such an array of different feelings, and sometimes just putting that on in the morning, if you're doing quite a heavy scene or a soft scene, can set the scene. But then there were days when I played the Pointer Sisters and we just got the party started. And Nile Rodgers was a feature all the time.
I could see Nile in the world, actually.
Me too.
Nile Rodgers is one of those, he never seems to age. He's like cryogenically frozen a bit, and it's kind of like but when I've watched him,
he invented a sound, I think. He invented a whole sound. Yeah.
And when he starts playing a set at a festival, it's kind of like, oh, and another one, and another one. And it's just this hit after hit. And you're kind of like, oh my God, he's just written every song that I've ever danced to.
Right. And it's sort of, it stays in it's like you don't realize the influence. It's sort of, you've got I Want Your Love and all the stuff he did with Chic. And then if you listen to Daft Punk carefully enough, there he is again. Daft Punk occasionally, some of those tracks.
This is a good set. This is a good set to be on.
Like I said, the party never stops with Loki.
I love watching you and Owen together. Those scenes with Loki and Mobius are beautiful, even in the first 2 episodes. And I imagine that that's something that we see kind of develop even more as we watch the series. And when I was thinking about coming to you today, I kind of had this slightly sort of fantastical image of Mobius and Loki sitting in a bar and doing kind of karaoke together. And I was just like, oh, that would be amazing. And obviously time being a big theme, and it being some kind of, I don't know, Cyndi Lauper Time After Time or something that they might try and attempt together. I was just, it's my crazy little mind and the way it works.
If I could turn back time. Absolute classic. So many.
Was that fun? Was that fun to have a kind of sort of partner to sort of, to kind of play with in that way with those 2 characters as well?
Owen was amazing. He's such an important character in this, because Mobius is this analyst who works for the TVA, and the TVA is an organization that claims to govern the order of time, and they keep it in a linear, straight line according to some predetermined decision. And Mobius is academic and curious and intelligent, and on the page, I thought, I wonder how that's going to kind of come to life. And then when I found out that Owen was going to do it, it just all fell into place, because he brought such warmth and this wry sense of humor to the character. And it's such a confrontation for Loki, because I think Mobius is perhaps the first character he's ever encountered who can see him without judgment. There's no emotional involvement in whatever's going on for Loki. So it's a really confusing, all of Loki's tricks don't work on Mobius. And I guess they're a strange mirror for the other. And
yeah,
it was really fun. And we go on a big adventure together. Yeah.
It's because I felt like they were kindred spirits in a way, because they, kind of Mobius, he doesn't quite fit in there, in terms of he's kind of, he feels like he's got a constant. Yeah. I like that kind of common ground they seem to kind of, that I saw them finding with each other. I love the tone of it. The humor in it is brilliant as well. It's so unique, the whole thing, I think, and I'm so excited to watch the rest of it. I really, really am.
Well, I should just talk about Kate Herron.
Oh, Kate! I'm desperate to speak to Kate. Yeah, I mean, what a talent!
Amazing. And so, when I first met her, just the passion and the preparation was astonishing. And we made this for such a long time now, and we had to kind of synchronize watches. And she has an extraordinary combination of diligence and energy and kindness, because she's such a fan of the genre and of sci-fi, but also as attentive, if not more attentive, to the emotional reality that her characters find themselves in. And it was a really, just to see her work and work with her was a pleasure. So I owe it to her. And I should talk about, before I forget, Natalie Holt.
Natalie Holt's score is extraordinary.
It's like, I kind of wish I'd had that before we started. It was like, yes, this is the sound. This is Loki. This is what Loki sounds like. And the score has all this kind of, it's got some flair and some theatricality and some bombast. And it's sort of, it announces itself with confidence. But there's also these very unusual, I guess, motifs or themes that recur through the course of the series. And I think there's the theremin, this kind of unusual instrument that she plays. And her contribution has just elevated the entire thing. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie, it's so exciting as well, because she's such a new, composer, in terms of, she's worked across some incredible projects and stuff, but it's so brilliant that, I think that's something that Kevin Feige kind of really does, in terms of when he's working on the right team to work on, the productions and with the specific characters. When you think of putting Taika on Thor Ragnarok and what that did to, I mean, you can tell that he really cares about what these characters do and who he puts, with these projects and with these characters as well. And in terms of the team that he's put together for this behind the scenes, particularly with Kate and Natalie, it's extraordinary. And 2 women as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. And there's a strange connection I have with Natalie, which is that she worked on Wallander for the BBC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of amazing.
That's lovely. What a lovely kind of full circle. It's It's crazy to think, isn't it, that if they hadn't listened to those those kind of test screenings way back, that we wouldn't be here now talking about the series in the terms of that, he wasn't originally supposed to be a character that went through this, journey that has, longer than most of them, to be honest, sort of thing. But amazing that they listen to the fans.
They do. They understand the relationship is a two-way street. They make these movies for the fans and understand that the stories and the characters, they mean so much to so many people for lots of different reasons, and it's hugely generous, I think, and they're so diligent in their attention. They really listen. And I have the fans and the audience to thank, to whoever's in that test screening for Thor: The Dark World.
Wouldn't it be amazing to have a screening, another screening with everyone who was originally in that screening room? That would be awesome. That would be
Yes,
so
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Oh, maybe one
Yeah, that
day.
was so. Yes, that Thor: The Dark World was once upon a time my last destination. But yeah, whoever's in that room,
Thank
thank you.
God. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank God. Right, let's talk about you in music specifically, because
yeah,
I I know how much you love the art form of, you know, of creating, basically, you know, whether
yeah,
that's film or TV or theater,
yeah.
you know, and you studied as well. But at what point, and it's probably way before that, was music something that you know, we talked earlier about the power of it, but something that you recognized the power of it, and what it could be. You know, it can be simply as putting a piece of music on to enjoy, but also there's a lot more that it does offer.
I think it was sort of. I must have recognized that it made me feel something, and it made me feel something in a way that was it was like it was reflecting something about myself back to me that I hadn't fully become aware of. And it probably was from, I loved music as a child.
Do you play anything?
I play few things very badly. Uh, I play the piano a little bit, and I play the
The
guitar.
guitar, you learned to play the guitar, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also once upon a time played the trumpet, but my embouchure has completely have lost it completely. But when I was 10, I played the last post on Remembrance Sunday at school,
Oh, wow.
and loved doing that. But I remember I can actually, even as you asked that question, I remember once on a trip somewhere across this country, it might be even in Scotland. We were listening to Simon and Garfunkel on the way, and there's the end of that, the end of the Boxer is really, it has this suddenly kind of orchestral, like all these strings come in, and it opens up from just being an acoustic guitar to being something, a much more sophisticated arrangement. And I think the same thing happens on Bridge Over Troubled Water. It just suddenly gets bigger. It stops just being piano, and it gets bigger. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling, what am I feeling? I'm feeling things. And so that was definitely like a light bulb going off about the power of music to evoke feeling. And then really just in my teens, probably, you know, because I'm very old now. I remember going to trying to find soundtracks, because soundtracks weren't easy to get, and you had to go to
So
HMV,
hard.
and you had to go to, like, they were never on display because it was always pop and rock and da, 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 and you have to go to the basement, and there was like a little corner at the back of HMV with the soundtracks, and I'd be like, no, I want to find Last of the Mohicans, or I
Oh,
want to find
amazing.
Shawshank Redemption, because I remember watching The Last of the Mohicans. I must have been about 11 or 12. And I knew that there was something about the combination of Michael Mann and Dante Spinotti's cinematography, although I wouldn't have probably known their names back then. Daniel Day-Lewis's performance, the locations, and that score. I was like, I'm feeling really ancient things here, and I'm only 11. So it was really trying to seek out, and I used to have this double tape deck where I would try and find, and I realized, I suppose, that was unusual. Like, my friends didn't have soundtracks in their CD collections. But then maybe it was the same for you. I just was always interested by film music, and became really aware of it and started listening out for it
It was
too.
it was the Jungle Book for me, weirdly, in terms of that kind of sort of New Orleans jazz kind of thing. And I remember hearing a jazz band play it live in my mum and dad's little hotel. And there was something about that experience that made me kind of almost not separate the music from the pictures from that point on, but more kind of pay a bit more attention to it. And
Absolutely.
And it was
What's really strange, sorry, I'll let you finish.
no, go. No, I'm done. Go.
Well, when I auditioned for drama school, you have to do a classical piece, a modern piece, and you have to sing a song. And I sang The Bare Necessities.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
You know, because you have to sing it without accompaniment. And I was like, I think I could pull this one off. Wasn't going to go for anything with too high, nothing too high in the tenor range, but I sang that. Yeah, Phil Harris.
Wow.
Legend.
Wow. But that's pressure. That is pressure. I mean, what if you're like the most amazing actor, but you just don't have the voice?
You're
that's
looking
hard. At it. Oh, come on. We heard it.
But it's, I suppose it's maybe as a test of like just committing to, because they used to actually teach us at drama school, even if you don't have, I mean, I was at drama school, people who were absolutely gifted and sang like angels. And I was aware I was really like, behind the pace and I was never going to get there. I just didn't have the instrument. But the lesson I learned is you just have to commit to the story of the song, and that will kind of guide you. So even if you can't, sing like Freddie Mercury or whoever it is, you just kind of commit to the song and what the song's trying to communicate, and somehow that will carry you through.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about I Saw the Light? Because
Sure.
I thought your performance in that was just really beautiful, and it was really interesting insight into his, a character study, really, in terms of I didn't really know that much about his life. I remember growing up hearing his songs. My granddad loved Hank Williams, and but yeah, in terms of the preparation for a role like that, there's a different type of learning involved, isn't there? Is that a nice challenge?
Maybe the biggest challenge ever, I think, for me, and a sort of a real a sense of responsibility about trying to get as close to getting it right as I could, and because Hank, what I learned about people like Hank, anyone in that position, could be Bob Dylan or Amy Winehouse, any people who write, compose, sing, and perform their own songs. It's so raw and so exposing. And as actors, we're interpreting and collaborating all the time, but those kinds of artists are just, you're so vulnerable because that's your words. And I had this amazing teacher, I think we've talked about this, called Rodney Crowell, who's this extraordinary musician and songwriter in his own right. And he loved Hank Williams. He remembers seeing Hank Williams on his father's shoulders at the age of 2. And I'm like, I hope I've got that right. But he sort of grew up in that tradition of that genre of music in America. And he taught me, he said, Tom, you're not going to be able to get inside this by any kind of imitation. What you have to try to work out is what these songs mean to you. If you take these lyrics, like I'm so lonesome I could cry, or that's a very sad song, or something very sort of upbeat, like Hey Good Looking, find out what these songs mean to you first and sing them for yourself, and then we can figure out how to modulate the tone.
Amazing.
And change, sort of change the timbre of your voice and stuff. And that was when I was like, wow, this is going to be exposing. Okay, you have to make a different sort of commitment.
Yeah, it's incredible when you look at the incredible collection of directors that you've worked with, and then the composers that have been part of those productions, whether that be Spielberg and John Williams, or Guillermo del Toro, or even on The Night Manager as well, which is incredible, with Suzanne and composer on that. But for me, one of my favorites has got to be the kind of Ben Wheatley and Clint Mansell collaboration, and also
so great.
the soundscape and score around ling and that character. And I just wondered if there was any music for you connected to that character in your prep or whilst you were filming it.
I remember, I think there was that, I think he said that there was a cover of SOS in the film.
Yeah, by Portishead, yeah.
Portishead,
yeah.
And that they had sent, before we started filming, they had sent an early sort of mix of what it might be. And Ben played it to me, and it was just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got this, what they did with that song. And also we were so thrilled that ABBA had given us the permission to do it. And it's so haunting. It's haunting and enigmatic. And it sort of was a real key into sort of the enigma of what Ballard was trying to do with that story. Because the way he wrote the book is he's got this clinical detachment in the way he writes about the characters and the slow and steady demise of the building and the society that they have constructed. Anyway, and so it was definitely that track. I used to play that on the way in.
Yeah, perfect. Listen, we've run out of time. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but I can't thank you enough for this. It's so great to chat to you. And I can't wait to watch the rest of the episodes of Loki as well. So great to see you, Tom.
Lovely to see you. Thanks for having me.
The wonderful Tom Hiddleston talking about many things, including his fantastic Loki series, which if you haven't checked out yet, it is up on Disney Plus. Please do so. Look forward to seeing what he's going to be doing next as well. Thank you very much for this. If you like what you see, please tell your friends, please subscribe, and also go and check out the podcast Soundtracking on your usual podcast provider, or you can subscribe by heading to edithbowman.com. I'll see you next time.